registering. Live. Well, yo, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of SRDaily. I'm your boy, your host, LaShawn Sugar Marston. And today, as all of this week, as I mentioned to you guys last week, we are live here at Innovation Charter High School for their enrichment week. So we're doing our show live. We got some students here. We got some educators here. We're going to talk about our stuff, talk about what we do in the show. They're going to tune in after the show. We're going to have a talk back. So it's going to be pretty dope. Every show this week is going to be geared towards something that I think specifically these young people, these high school students can benefit from, can take from. Enrichment Week, this sector is all about addressing your fears. So we're going to be talking about fear and things like that. Yo, Easy being Frank, what's going on, my brother? What's going on? Peace and love. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to share this live with 5 to 10 of your friends who may be interested in tuning in. Add it to your platform, add it to your feed, and let's get it started. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Once again, this is SR Daily episode 339, kicking off week 69 weeks doing the show, 339 episodes. That is absolutely impressive. As I mentioned to you guys before, I spoke to a friend a couple of months ago. He said normally, him and his friends stop at like 10 episodes, 20 episodes when things don't go the way they want it to go. We all have these big dreams, right? We all want millions of views. We all want live audience with hundreds and thousands of people in attendance. And sometimes it happens. And very rarely does it happen overnight, right? Very rarely does it happen immediately. Everything that is great, that is built, takes time. And so we are on a journey. We are a year and a half in, 69 weeks, 100. That was a long time ago. 339 episodes, quickly approaching episode 400, which will be our next milestone episode. And we are going to get started with our first segment of the day. Today's first segment on this beautiful Monday, April 7th, 2025, is our quote of the day. And today's quote is from a movie that I think a lot of people didn't like, right? I don't really remember much of the movie, but I remember this line from the movie, right? It's a Will Smith movie that he did with his son, Jaden Smith, a couple of years back. Wasn't the best movie, right? But it was a line that stuck with me and I think stuck with so many of us. In this movie, Will Smith said, "Fear is not real. It is a product of thoughts you create. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is real, but fear is a choice." Once again, this quote from Will Smith in the movie After Earth goes as, "Fear is not real. It is a product of thoughts you create. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is real, but fear is a choice." And again, this is the only line that I remember in that movie. Not really a memorable movie, but this line stood out. And it's valid, right? It's valid. As humans, a lot of times we develop these fears, right? We develop fears of heights. We develop fears of public speaking, fears of failure. We have fears of rejection, and we even have a fear of success. Yes, that is correct, ladies and gentlemen. People do fear success, right? We can talk about that later, right? But fear is we associated and we think that is real, right? We think that, I'm afraid of this thing. I'm afraid of people laughing at me. I'm afraid of what if I fall off the train tracks and I'm in the upper level train station, or what if I get on a roller coaster and it breaks? It's like, okay, danger is real. Things happen, right? Things happen. You could walk down the street and you could fear falling. It's like, okay, are you really gonna fall? Chances are the fear that has been created in your mind, right? That's what causes you to do the thing. So it's not that walking down the street, you could just slip and fall. Is that because you think that you could slip and fall, now you're walking not regular, you're not walking normally, you're not walking with confidence, you're not walking with strength, you're not walking with that energy that you need to make sure that you're good. That's what allows you to fall. But I just wanted to share that quote with you guys. All right, it's something that I've learned myself as someone who has experienced all type of fears. As I've gotten older, I've realized that those things that I was afraid of normally didn't come true, right? And most oftentimes did not happen, right? Fear of, me speaking and everybody laughing at me. It's like, okay, when I spoke, mostly people didn't laugh. People were encouraging. People were supportive, even when I messed up, right? It wasn't people laughing at me, pointing fingers, "Oh, you messed up," or "You're a failure." It was like people like, "Hey, man, good job. Good try. Good job. Try again," right? You did so great. So a lot of times when we face our fears, right? Again, whether it's public speaking, whether it's heights, whether it's failure, whether it's rejection, or even if it's success. Now, when we talk about the fear of success, a lot of people don't think that's real. A lot of people say, "How can you be afraid of success?" Let me tell you, Because when you succeed, success causes separation sometimes, right? From your family, from your friends, from your environment, sometimes from things that you used to do, things that you like doing. And that could lead to rejection. That could lead to ridicule, right? So fear of success is not necessarily fearing the actual success, it's fearing what comes with it, right? What comes with success is being more disciplined. What comes with success is being more responsible. And if you already don't think that you're a responsible person, if you already have these preconceived negative notions of yourself, right? Low vibrational connotations of yourself, of your being, then that's what can lead to a fear of success. I have been afraid of success. Why? I'll tell you guys, because I have family and friends who, with a little bit of success, they talked about me, right? People who I love, right? People who are really, really close to me. And I'm like, wow, they're talking about me. And I really ain't got no money yet. I just got a couple of awards. I guess I succeeded. I changed my life from being a street guy, from getting in trouble to doing something more positive. Just a little bit of success, they already talking about me. I love these people. If I really succeed at the level that I want to succeed on, what will they say then? And what would I do to our relationship? And I didn't want that to happen. And so I downplayed myself. I self-sabotage sometimes even. Opportunities would come, and I would know that this opportunity could take me to another level, and I would either be late, right? I wouldn't do it as thoroughly as I know I can or I'm supposed to do it, whatever it is, right? Whether it's writing a script, whether it's making a film, whether it's organizing a demonstration, whatever the case may be, right? So that fear of success for me showed up in that way. It was directly connected to my separation from my family and friends, and that was connected to rejection. Oh, you think you better than somebody. Oh, you think you this, or you think you that. And it's like nobody really wants to hear that, especially when you're focused on just becoming a better person yourself. Nobody wants to be ridiculed. So that's how fear of success showed up for me, right? If you have any experience with any of those fears, please do drop it in the comment, drop it in the chat. We are going to move right along to our second segment of the day. Today's second segment is our need to know news of the day. And today's news is sad news. It is news that may make some angry, but I think it's very important to talk about it. I want to talk about the tragic story of Deron Jenkins. Deron Jenkins is a 25-year-old man who was released from prison. He went to prison for, I think, like attempted murder or something like that. He ended up beating the case, right? Coming home from prison. I think he was in prison for like 2-3 years. Came home from prison. And a week later, he killed his mother and his brother. He killed his mother and his little brother. And I found out about this case because on Facebook, social media, right? We all know social media. Sometimes you get the news there before you get it anywhere else. And I was on social media, and a friend of mine shared a post of this woman, Miss Jenkins, who was extremely excited that her son was coming home from jail. Her post literally was like, my son is coming home. My son is coming home. My son is home. My son is home. My son came home. She was really excited that her son came home. And then a week later, he killed them. And so I want to read this article and talk about the case, right? Talk about that situation, because I think that it is a very, again, it's not easy to talk about, but it, I think, has a lot of issues in it that we all should be discussing, specifically when we're talking to students, high schoolers, right? So this article is in people.com. North Carolina man was released from prison. A week later, he fatally shot his mom and brother. Deron Jenkins, 25, has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the double homicide. A North Carolina man allegedly killed his mother and teenage brother 1 week after he was released from prison, according to multiple news outlets, which cite authorities and court records. Deron Jenkins, 25, has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the double homicide in a home in Wilson, North Carolina, which took place on Monday, March 31st. So this is just last week, right? This is just a week ago, literally last Monday. Officers responded to the home just before 5:30 p.m. that day, where they found the bodies of 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Darren Cox. ABC 11 told WBT report citing police. Police confirmed to ABC 11 that the woman is the suspect's mother and the boy is his brother. Further details regarding the circumstance of the death is unclear and remains under investigation by police, per the outlet. According to court documents cited by ABC 11, Deron was released from prison on a separate crime 1 week before the killings. Wanilla Cornegie, Dana's cousin, described the mother as a very sweet person who always smiled. She added that her death comes as a shock. I would have never thought that, Cornegie told the outlet. I would have never thought he would do something like that. Deron is being held at the Wilson County Jail on no bond. CBS 17 report citing records. It's unclear if he has entered a plea or retained an attorney to speak on his behalf. Now, one thing I wanted to mention here, right? This is violence. This is domestic violence. This is mental health. Because for any person, I don't like whatever your race is, whatever your ethnic background, your religion, whatever your financial status is, for any person to kill their mother and or their brother, right? Let alone both, there has to be something mentally off, right? Because even if, right, we all either a part of situations or know of situations where you don't mess with your family. You don't like your parent. The parent may not like the child for whatever reason, right? Especially as adults, right? Siblings may not get along. Very real. It's very real. But to take a gun and to shoot your brother and your mother, that is something mentally that's what I would call a mental illness, right? That's a mental illness. Let alone now, I'm someone who has been shot, and I'm someone who went to prison for a shooting, right? So I understand the thought process that goes with not caring if you live or die, not caring if you go to prison, and not caring if you hurt someone else. That's a lack of self-love. That's a lack of self-worth, right? That's not caring about you nor anybody else. That's mentally you're not sound. You can say you're okay, but no, you having those thoughts is not okay, right? Conflict happens. Disagreements happen, disputes happen. Those things happen. Family, sometimes they fight, right? Like it happens, whether we agree or not. One thing that should never happen, it should never go to that next level where you take your family member's life. Let alone your mother, she brought you into the world, right? And she was excited. So clearly no one, or I don't know the family. I don't know what was going on in the home. I don't know what type of parent she was to him, right? I don't know that. I don't. But what I do know is that mental health is real. I want to relate this to a situation that happened last year that some of you guys may have heard about. Last year in the Bronx, a young lady killed her mother she hit her with a frying pan in the head. All right. Now, this family I knew personally. I knew this family. They had lived in my neighborhood, Queensbridge, for a couple of years. The mother used to date one of my homeboys. They were together. So I was in the home with this mom and this little girl since she was like 2-3 years old. And at some point, as they grew and they moved out and they end up, moving to the Bronx, something happened, right? And what I was reading was the young lady, her name was Sky. Her name is Sky. Sky had dealt with some trauma, right? I think she had been molested. She had a couple of other things happen that started to affect her mental health. She ended up having a baby with somebody. The father of her child, I think it was an abusive situation. So that led to more mental trauma. At some point, she started to hear voices. She ended up going to a psych ward. She checked herself in to a psych institution, right? Saying, hey, I'm having these thoughts. I'm having these feelings, right? And she told the authorities she had thoughts of hurting her mother. She was in a facility, I think, for like 30 days. They ended up letting her go. And I think the next day she killed her mother. She killed the mother, called the police and said, come get this bitch. I just killed her. She hit her mother with a frying pan, called the cops and said, come get this bitch. I just killed her. That's tough. That's tough. That's very, very, very tough. But again, that goes to mental health, right? And that also leads to another thing with that situation, as well as the situation with the young man, Deron, is what role. Now, again, I'm someone who I am part of the abolitionist movement. I think that we should abolish prisons. I think that we need to have restorative justice. I think that we need to look at crime differently than just punishing people. We need to look at the root of crime. Why do people commit crimes, right? We need to get into all of that, right? Poverty and all of these things that are drivers of crime before we talk about sending people to prison. However, I think there's a fine line because when someone shows signs of violent behavior, when someone is showing that they're not mentally stable, what role does the system play in keeping that person away from the rest of society? What role does the system play in keeping someone who is mentally unstable away from the rest of society where they could potentially hurt someone? Because this is not the situation with the young lady, Sky, and her mother. That's not the first time. The situation with the young man killing his mother and his brother, that's not the first situation like that, right? There are whole freaking TV shows, right, about someone who killed their whole family. It happens too often. So what can we as a society do about that? Right? It's something that, I don't have all the answers to, but it's something that I think we need to discuss, because it could be any one of us, right? Any one of us could be harmed by a family member, and or any one of us, you never know what could cause someone to snap, could end up losing their mind. Whether it's, I know some people who were smoking weed, right? And we think smoking weed is normal, smoking weed is cool, it's not that bad. But then their weed gets laced with some angel dust or another drug, right? Fentanyl or something else, and you lose your mind, and now you're not in your right mind. Now you are acting in a way that is not normal to who you are. It happens. It happens. It happens. It happens. It happens a lot. I know a few people who were perfectly fine one day, and then the next time you seen them, they weren't the same anymore because of something that happened, whether it was a drug, whether it was an accident that altered their brain function, right? And they ended up, as what we would say, losing their freaking mind. Dave, what's going on, brother? What's going on? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Please do chime in, drop a comment in the chat. We are going to move right along to our third segment of the day. Third segment is a tip of the day. Always a tip of the day. And today's tip is for our young people, right? We're here with a group of high school students, and I want to share a tip with you guys, right? A few tips. One, take all of the freaking risk. Take all of the risk, right? You have 13, 16, 17, 15, whatever age. Take all of the risk, because when you get 41, right, and when you become a family person, a mom, a dad, when you have more responsibilities, it's harder to take the same risk. It's harder to take the financial risk. You may not have the same time freedom to take the vacations or the things that you want to do. Do all of the things, right? Take the risk. Know that, right? You may be afraid of failure, but I promise you, as someone who has failed countless times, it's not the end of the world. I've had failed relationships. I've had a failed marriage, right? I've freaking failed my children sometimes, right? Like, I failed tests. I failed sporting events. I failed. I've started projects. I've invested money and nothing came back. I failed so many times. Failure is not the end. Failure is not the end of the world, right? What could feel like the end is regret, right? So if you are going to have a fear, let it be your fear of regret. Let it be not wanting to grow old, right? Because none of us know if we'll live to be 70, 80, 90, 100, right? Some of us would like to live that long. But imagine if you do live that long and you have just 60, 70 years of things that you wish you could have did, right? At 80 years old, that person you wanted to talk to when you were 16, they might be dead or old, right? You can't talk to them no more. You can't shoot your shot, right? That business that you wanted to start when you were 17, when you was 20, you may not be able to start no more because the industry changed, right? That trip that you wanted to take, you may not be able to take it no more. Maybe we are in a time where there are places, physical places on earth that are going underwater. So there's going to be places that you could travel to today that you may not be able to travel to in 50 years. Right? That's very real. We are living in those times. So take all of the risk, do all of the things that are in alignment with who you are. Follow your heart. Follow your heart, right? Because even if you fail, and even if you feel like crap, it's like, oh man, I messed up. I can't. All you're gonna do is get stronger. As long as you continue to live, all you're gonna do is get stronger. You're gonna learn something, right? And you can try it again and be better. Or you can say, you know what? I tried that. I don't like that. I'm not doing that again. Right? But if you don't try, I promise you, if you got a grandmother, if you got an uncle or aunt or any elders in your family, ask them, what is your biggest regret? And they could tell you a bunch of them. A bunch of, you got a bunch of them. Oh, I should have did this when I was younger. All old people, right? Not all old people, but a lot of older people. I've spoken to many elders in the community center, at senior homes, and it's the same story. Oh, I wish I would have started when I was younger, right? I wish I would have did this business when I was younger. I wish I would have did. I wish. But the time passed. You can't no more. Now, all you got is that pain of what if. What if I would have tried? What if I would have did it? You can't no more. It's over. The time passed. The situation passed. You don't have the same abilities, right? Like, bodies change. Things change. As time goes on, life happens. And you can't go back, right? Like, as much as we wish we can go back in time, we can't. Time only goes forward, right? There are fortunate... right, we can be fortunate enough to have an opportunity again, but it's never the same. The opportunity you have at 18, at 17 is different. Even if the same opportunity, for example, let's say the opportunity to do your own show, right? Let's say the opportunity comes up at 17 years old. Some of you guys know Frank Bold Arts Media, right? You're doing acting, you're doing filmmaking, you're doing all of these things. Let's say the opportunity comes to do your own show, to produce your own film. But let's say, like, nah, what if I fail? I don't want to try that. What if people laugh at me? Okay, cool. Now let's say 40 years later, you're 50 something years old. Opportunity comes again, right? Yeah, the opportunity is again, but you don't have the same time go forward. So now at 57, doing your own show, you only got a couple of years left to do it, right? Even if you live to 90, you only got 40 years left. Whereas if you start at 17, you got 70, 80 years of doing it, right? So the earlier you start, the longer you can do something. And even if you fail, you have more opportunity to try it again, to learn something, right? Especially if you are in school. If you're a student, you got teachers, you got educators who want to support you. So I promise you, man, face your fears, right? Face your fears. Don't let your fears stop you from doing something. Because I promise you, like at 41, I wish I would have did some things when I was younger, right? That I'm starting to do now. But again, it's not the same, right? Me freaking, I was in Puerto Rico a couple years ago. I jumped off the freaking cliff into the water. You know how long it took my body to recover? At 40, I was 2 years ago, 39. It took my body longer to recover because I hit the water like, ooh. Whereas if I would have did it when I was 18, 19, when I wanted to, but I was afraid, what if I hit a rock? That's a real fear. What if I jump off the cliff, off the mountain, into the water? What if I hit a rock and die? Do I know anyone who's hit a rock and died? No. Has it happened before? Yes, but is it likely? Probably not. What am I afraid of? Oh, because what if? Now I did it, right? So opportunity came, I did do it, but the recovery process, for 2 days, I really couldn't do the other things I wanted to do because I had stings on my body, right? But let's move right along to our fourth and final segment of the day before we move on to a talk back. And this build of the day, we're going to talk about the root causes of fear. That is what we are here for, to face our fears, to address some of the things that we are afraid of. And we are going to read some stuff, right? So fears, both real and imagined, are rooted in a complex interplay of biological, psychological, and environmental factors, including the amygdala's role in processing threats, past experiences, and learned behaviors. The amygdala is part of the brain that regulates emotions, right? It's part of the limbic system, and it regulates your emotions. Specifically, it relates to fears, fight or flight response, right? You guys know what that is, fight or flight response. Biological underpinnings, the amygdala, well, we just spoke about that, but hormonal responses. When a threat is perceived, right? When there's a threat, right? When you're walking down a block and you may see a freaking crane on a building swaying, right? It's a real threat. Like, oh, snap, what if that thing falls, right? Your body is going to release hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, preparing it for action. Do I run? Do I duck, right? If you're with somebody, do I grab my person and we move? Right, your body is always going to give you signals, right? You have survival instincts. Fear is a fundamental survival mechanism, alerting us to potential dangers and prompting us to take action. You have psychological factors in fear. You have past experiences, right? Traumatic events or negative experiences can create strong associations with specific situations or subjects. For example, my mom, I love my mom, great lady, right? My mom has a fear of not so much heights, but specifically like train stations, outside train stations that are upstairs, right? She thinks that she's gonna fall. Even though she's in the train, the doors are closed, right? She thinks that she's going to fall. She thinks that because she had a past experience, right? Past experience where she almost fell, right? So now past experience, we relate that to the current experience, like, oh no, this thing could happen again, right? And again, it could, but what is a life living in fear, right? Because if you want to travel, you want to do things. Now there's so many places that she doesn't go, that she wants to go, that she would like to go, but she doesn't because the way she has to travel to get there is associated with a fear. I had a fear for a long time. Well, not a long time, but when I was younger, I had a fear of, and it's still a thing. It's not really a fear, but of drowning. So I almost drowned when I was younger. I learned to swim at 6 years old. I was a pretty good swimmer, but at some point, they threw me in the beach and I was far out and I panicked and I almost drowned. My nephew saved my life. And so even when a couple of years ago I was in Puerto Rico, I jumped in the pool, part of me panicked, right? And I had to remember the mechanics. Like, okay, get your head above water. Okay, one arm, right? But that's because I practiced and I had years of practice, but someone who doesn't have the same practice, doesn't have those same skill sets, that fear can take over and you can freaking die. So now you died, not because of the water itself, but because of your fear and your panic, right? Learn behaviors. We can learn to fear things by observing the reactions of others. That's a big one. A lot of people have fears, not because of something that happened to us, but because of other people. Because of other people's fear, of other people's inhibition, of other people's anxiety, we develop an anxiety. Oh, well, what if, we're driving and we crash? And it's like, okay, like, or somebody have a fear of flying. What if the plane crashes? Planes crash. More cars crash than planes. Oh, but this person said, that's that person's fear. It doesn't have to be yours. You don't have to take another person's fear, whether they're your parent, whether they're your sibling, whether they're an educator, whether they're your favorite friend, your uncle, your aunt. You don't have to take on other people's fears. A lot of us have fears based on other people's fears. You have cognitive distortions. Our thoughts and interpretations of situations can significantly influence our fear responses. And then you have environmental influences, and this is a big one. Cultural norms. Certain fears and anxieties may be more prevalent in specific cultures or social groups and social learning. We learn about potential dangers and triggers from our environment. New York City, big city, Harlem, Bronx, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens. A lot of people, a lot of things happening all the time. We hear stories every single day, somebody getting pushed on the train tracks, somebody getting shot, this thing happening, that thing happening. The fears that we have in a city like this, depending on where you come from, what neighborhood you live in, your fears may be a little different than the fears of somebody who doesn't live in that neighborhood. Now, does that mean your fear is not real? Remember, danger is real. Fear is a choice. Can I walk down my block in Queens, in Queensbridge, and get shot by accident? Absolutely. Can I walk down neighborhood in Brooklyn and get robbed? Absolutely. It can happen. Danger is very real. But am I going to walk in fear? I choose not to. I choose to walk with my head up. I choose to walk, right, with confidence. I choose to walk trusting that I'm okay, trusting that I put out good energy, right, that I'm a good person, that I do good things for the world, and all the good things are going to happen back to me. So conditioning, how we condition our mindset is a way that we can overcome our fears. Specific fears I just want to talk about before we wrap this show up. There are phobias. Phobias are intense, irrational fears of specific objects or situations. Once again, heights could be one of them. Claustrophobia is another. Social anxiety. This involves a fear of social situations and negative evaluation by others. This can be public speaking, speaking in front of a classroom, right? What if they laugh at me? What if they're looking at me? I speak now, right? I speak and I get paid to speak, right? And I've spoken at so many cool places. When I was young, I did not like to speak. In third grade, I remember specifically 8 years old, I had gaps in my teeth that I still have, baby teeth, right? I have a dent in my head. I used to have light spots on my face, and I talk with a stutter. So I did not like speaking in front of the classroom. And I remember specifically the teacher called me up to speak about something, and my palms started sweating. I got real nervous. My stomach started hurting, and I picked up, I think, a pencil. I threw a pencil, right? I think I picked up an apple. I threw the apple. I'd rather get in trouble than speak in front of a class. Right? Because what if they laughed at me? What if they talk about my teeth? What if they talk about my stutter? Because they did, right? They did. But what I realized is that it's not the end of the freaking world. And what I realized as I got older is that the only people who laugh at you, who talk about you when you get up to speak, are people who have their own insecurities that they're not dealing with. Right? Because if I know that I have a stutter, if I know that I have these issues, and you get up and speak, I'm going to only be encouraging because I'm addressing my stuff, so I'm not going to laugh at your stuff. Only people who laugh at you are the people who got their own shit going on, who are not trying to address it, right? You got panic disorder. This involves recurrent, unexpected panic attacks. You got post-traumatic stress disorder. This can develop after experiencing or witnessing a traumatic event, leading to persistent fear and anxiety. And I want to stay there for the next minute. PTSD. A lot of us have PTSD. A lot of us, again, in these urban environments, coming from certain neighborhoods, being part of certain families. A lot of us have PTSD. Number one, I think all of us have some level of PTSD just from the freaking ambulances and the fire trucks and the police sirens all the time. All the time. I'm going to tell you how real PTSD is for me. Like I said, I've been shot, and I've witnessed friends killed by friends. I've seen it in front of me. Friends kill friends. When I hear fireworks, 4th of July time, I jump, right? Like, some of them sound like gunshots, right? Some fireworks sound like gunshots, so I jump. When I first came home from prison, I did 3 years in prison. The first 3 to 5 years, I would hear a siren, a police siren specifically, and I would jump. Like, although my life was completely changed, I wasn't living the same life I was living before, but I was still, because like, oh snap, I used to have to run from the cops. So now I'm hearing the sirens. Do I got to run? Do I gotta, like, are they coming to get me? Did I do something? PTSD. And it shows up in so many different ways. It shows up in the way of if you grew up in a household and your parents were yelling all the time or fighting, and now you're around some friends and you hear yelling, you may think it's going to lead to a fight, where it could just be people talking a little bit loud, right? But that's our show for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm your boy, your host, LaShawn Sugar Ray Marston. This is episode 339 of SRDaily. Thank you guys for tuning in on Instagram. Thank you guys for tuning in on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for the comments. I appreciate you guys. Once again, we will be here 5 days this week today and the rest of the week through Friday for Enrichment Week with Innovation Charter High School. We'll be addressing some fears. Today, they're going to be addressing the fear of heights. Super dope, super cool. Please do be sure to join us right back here tomorrow, same time, same place, 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Instagram Live. I'm your boy, your host, LaShawn Sugar Ray Marston. Remember, it ain't getting knocked down. That's the problem. It's staying down. So get up. The power is in you. As always, be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. Peace and love. Thank you.